Hello everybody, Bandit Brains here, and welcome back to another Valheim video. Before we get into the episode, I wanted to do a quick channel update for you guys, and if you just want to watch the episode, then I'm going to put a timestamp here. So you can skip to that if you just want to see the build. But this does concern this series, so I wanted to fill you guys in on some of the things that I'm going to be doing, as well as some of the future videos I'm going to be doing on the channel. So first things first, let's talk about lag. As my castle world has been getting bigger and a lot more detailed, lag has unfortunately started to become a problem. I've seen other content creators come into this problem, and it seemed to be with builds that were smaller than mine, so I just thought I was getting lucky. But recently, as I've been getting further into the castle structure, lag on one side of that raised platform has been becoming a problem for some reason. In the middle of me preparing this video, patch 0.148.6 dropped, and a lot of issues have been made better, but they're still not great. They've done a lot of work on the server side of things and items spawning in, but the main problem that I found is the terrain, and the terraform terrain that I have edited is eating up massive amounts of resources from my computer and my server. I'm confident though that they are working towards it. I know they're hiring a lot of people at the minute, so that will take up a lot of time before a lot of updates will be rolled out. But I'm very hopeful that in the near future, some performance issues will be ironed out and the lag will hopefully get better. But what does all this mean for the series? Well, if the lag gets a lot worse, then I might have to slow down on the videos. I found a few workarounds where if I angle my camera to areas of the map where not a lot of terraforming and not a lot of stuff is happening, I can get a lot built and a lot recorded. So I'm gonna persevere with that and hopefully get some videos made. In the meantime though, I feel like I want to make some unique build videos, so one-off time lapses of some cool builds that I'm thinking of. So I'm thinking maybe a big massive treehouse in the swamp biome, maybe a cool time lapse of a port town, or even like a nice mountain lodge. One-off cool big builds, not quite as big as the castle. That's all I'm saying. If that's something you want to see me do in my style and in my style of editing, then let me know, and even give me suggestions of things that I can do. So basically, I'm still going ahead with the series. It just might slow down a little bit, and I might experiment with some different videos. As always, I want to thank you all for the support that you've shown me on this series. I'm seeing a lot of returning viewers and a lot of returning commenters, and I appreciate it a lot. Giving me a lot of suggestions and a lot of feedback, and it really does mean the world to me. I love reading your comments. But I've rambled far too much. Thank you for staying tuned for that little update, and I hope you enjoy this episode, so let's get into it. So to start this episode off, I wanted to kind of give you guys a sense of how big the main hall of this building was going to be. And I felt that the best way to do that was to get every wall in this room up to the same height and built just one thick, but up to the same height as where the roof is at the minute. I again supported this with the iron gates within the wall, and I just made my way all the way around this main great hall. Once the gates were all up, I went layer by layer doing the overlapping brick effect, and this took a long time, but by now I'm used to it. I just stick on a Netflix show or a YouTube video and I just get to it. It all gets done pretty quickly. So in a matter of no time, this wall here was completed, and then I moved around to the back wall and the side wall to get that finished as well. You can see here, I still have that side of the mountain kind of coming into the building, and I think I'm going to be able to hide that by kind of building it into a staircase that's going to go on that back wall. But once those walls were done, I moved on to doing the flooring. I was sure I got a clip of me putting down the supports, but apparently I didn't. But all I did with that was use iron poles to make a little frame across the floor so that the stone floors that I was going to use as the main floor could be supported. And while I was spending all this time down at floor level, I got a better feel for the archways over here. And I wasn't happy with the one wide columns. They just didn't feel big enough. So I removed them, I added a few more iron poles, and I made the column area too wide. I then added another column in front of it to add another layer of depth, and I think this turned out a lot better. The wider and thicker column just made the archway seem a lot more supported and a lot more substantial. I also threw in some core wood pillars there either side of the columns just to make the column pop and to add a bit more color. It's so easy to lose detail when you're using all of these gray items, so I always seem to use wood here and there, just so everything doesn't feel so washed out all the time. Then I continued the walls above it until they reached the height of the outer walls, and this made the Great Hall start to feel like one big room. So I moved on to measuring out how some of the detail was going to be added. Here I'm measuring out where the middle of this wall is and then building some wooden beam guidelines out across the floor so that I could measure out where the main support pillars were going to be within the Great Hall. I then used these guides to space out where a pillar was going to be, and I also lined it up with the archway from the entrance hall. I used gates to keep it supported, and then I outlined the edges of the pillar using wooden beams. I also decided to make the pillar double thick as opposed to one thick, just in case I needed to come back and add any more detail later on. Then a little bit further down the hall, I repeated those steps and made another pillar. Again, I lined it up with the pillar from the archways from the entrance hall, just because when I come to make the wooden beam archways going out from these pillars, I don't want it to be hitting a void on the other side. If that didn't make any sense, and I'm sure it didn't because I don't think I understood, you'll see what I mean later on because I'll figure out what I'm doing. Basically, I want nice intricate wooden arches running the length of this Great Hall, but I guess we'll see how that turns out when we get there. But anyway, moving on a little bit, I decided to continue the roof out so that it reached the second support pillar. I didn't make it go any further than that because I'm still not sure I want the pitched roof to run the entire length of the Great Hall. I want some kind of verticality and a different style of second floor at some point of this castle. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do that with the stability mechanics and how I'm going to support that second floor above this already pretty big structure. So the roof was up and the snow was kept out, but all I managed to do was show how disgusting this horrible concrete floor was looking. I just hated how it looked, the way that the grey from the floor just blended into the grey from the walls, and oh, I didn't like it at all. So I made a trim around where the floor and the wall met using the wooden beams, and then I decided to make it a wooden floor. I think it breaks up the monotonous grey that there is, and I actually really like how the wooden floor looked. I've kept this trim down the middle from where I marked out the middle of the wall, just because I think I'm gonna be adding kilns, and is it kilns? It's not kilns. It's hearths. I'm going to be having hearths down the middle as like a sort of campfire or place where people can gather around and drink their mead, eat their Viking meals, and do whatever it is that Vikings do in a Great Hall. I started messing around with some of the detailed beam patterns that you can do above the hearths, but I decided not to bother just yet. It's something I'll do down the road, but I'll be tying it in with the archway beams going the length of the Great Hall, so I'll do that later on. But I did get around to lighting the hearths to show how warm and cozy it makes it feel. At this point, I decided to do a quick little walkthrough of what we have at the minute so we can get a feel for what is going on. And if you listen closely, if you listen, yep, you can hear my frame rate screaming for help because it's getting worse. I like the progress we've made though. Everything is still very basic and a blank canvas. A lot more detail needs to be put in, but you know, I like what we've got so far. And then just because I feel like we haven't done it in a while, I did a walkthrough from down at the bottom here. The roof's looking bigger, the structure itself is looking bigger, and it's starting to take up more of that view as you come through the street down below. And it was at this point that I decided I wasn't going to be doing any more of the Great Hall for the remainder of this video. I kind of hit a creative block for today and I didn't want to make this video drag out any longer. And the fact that this video is already a few days overdue due to the fact that I've been working a lot lately and I've been struggling with the lag issues, I decided to move on to something of a side project down below here in the little town area. I gave it a bit of thought and I think I've settled on the idea of doing a blacksmith building just to give you guys some more content while I figure out some of the problems up above. So first things first, I got to planning out the outline of the building and figuring out where I wanted these 2 chimneys to be. I've always pictured having this blacksmith building as having 2 big chimneys with smoke coming out, you know, giving it this authentic blacksmith feel. I don't know if I'm going to be putting furnaces or kilns in here, just because I don't know how I'm going to incorporate that into the look. So it might not be a functioning blacksmith in terms of Valheim the game, but in terms of looks, I might take some creative liberties and just make it look good. So I built up the chimneys bit by bit using stone, and I opted to go with a lot more stone in this build than the other buildings, just because it's a blacksmith and I felt like that suited it more. Most of the framing I did with core wood like the other buildings, but when it came to the actual walls, I stuck with the stone walls as opposed to wooden. I continued this all the way around the building on the upper floor, and every now and then I would add another layer to the chimneys as I got higher, and also built in some of the flooring for the second floor. Then that brought me around to adding the roof. I went with 2 45-degree pieces and then 2 26-degree pieces, and this met at a perfect peak at the very top of the roof, it worked out pretty well. I'm sure my OBS is playing up a bit because I'm sure I recorded that part of the build, but it doesn't seem to have saved. But anyway, moving on, this is what we're finished with. It's not completed. I'm going to tidy it up a lot, and I think I'm also going to add an outdoor gazebo area where I will add a furnace and a kiln and a load of anvils and stuff like that, just to give it that extra blacksmith feel. But for now, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm sorry this episode took so long to get out, but as I say, I've been working a lot lately and progress has been slow with the lag and the rendering issues. But with that said, I thank you all for watching, and hopefully I can get you some videos out in the coming week or so. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.